Hi, everyone. Today, I'm diving into the synastry between Kendall Jenner and Jacob Elordi. Their planetary synastry alone is overflowing with Pluto and Neptune energy. There is obsession here and fantasy. There is projection, magnetic chemistry, and the kind of glamour that can make two people seem larger than life once they step into each other's orbit. The planetary synastry already feels like a movie all by itself. But as fascinating as the planets are, the asteroids take this story into an entirely different dimension. The deeper I went into the chart, the stranger it became, because the asteroid synastry starts filling in details that the planetary aspects didn't. So I'm going to get started with the planetary synastry first and build the foundation of the relationship. Then later in the video, I will dive into the asteroids, where some of the most fascinating and unexpected pieces of this connection begin to emerge. Her Aries moon trines his Pluto. His Pluto overlays into her 8th house, which conjuncts her Venus, Pluto, and Nessus asteroid. That's the hidden chamber in the chart. His Pluto falling into her 8th house is enough to make this feel addicting, but the fact that her natal 8th house already contains a Venus-Pluto-Nessus conjunction, that makes the entire energy come alive. His Pluto is walking directly into a house in her chart that is already wired for intensity, attachment, seduction, and dangerous obsession long before he arrived. Her Mars is conjunct his Nessus. With her Mars in the 8th house, this adds another layer of sexual obsession, power, and control. A Pluto overlay into the 8th house in synastry is intense. It's like a drug. It gets into your bloodstream. People can walk away from connections like this and still feel pulled back towards the person long after the relationship is over. Almost like an addiction they can't fully shake. And with these two, it doesn't stop there. I'm just getting started. Her moon in Aries trines his Pluto in Sagittarius, and that adds emotional fire to it too. Fire trines do not sit politely in the corner. They ignite quickly. The reaction feels immediate, alive, and primal because Pluto pulls emotional honesty out of her moon, whether she wants that exposure or not. And because her moon is in the 12th house, this becomes even more complicated because her emotions already live behind curtains and locked doors. The hardest thing about the moon in the 12th house is that it is very difficult for a person to show others their heart. She may pull back and isolate due to simple fear of rejection. So when his Pluto trines her moon, he starts pulling emotions out of her that she normally keeps sealed off from the rest of the world. And then his Pluto makes contact to her Venus-Pluto-Nessus conjunction. His Pluto is activating a part of her chart that is already wired for intensity and seduction. And with Nessus involved, this can bring power struggles, toxic attachment patterns, manipulation, or unhealthy dynamics into the relationship. This is the kind of synastry where two people can become deeply pulled into each other while also realizing the connection is becoming too intense to fully control. It's like standing too close to a bonfire because the heat feels impossible to walk away from. Now, her Sagittarius Venus still wants freedom and experience, but Pluto and Nessus darken and intensify the love nature itself. And with her Pluto and Nessus conjuncting her Venus, she has a tendency to get wrapped up in love affairs that are all-consuming and controlling. But at the same time, she wants to have control and power over her love relationships. Her Pluto trines his Venus in Cancer. Pluto trine Venus is love and lust. That is the oversimplified version, though, because this aspect feels less like a crush and more like somebody slowly getting their hands around your heart. His Cancer Venus wants closeness, tenderness, and emotional safety, while her Scorpio Pluto comes in with X-ray vision. She doesn't just want chemistry. She wants access and the hidden keys and the parts that people normally protect. So the attraction between them can become magnetic very quickly because his side is reaching for emotional closeness while she is already pulling the relationship into deeper waters. But layered together with all the other Pluto and Neptune contacts, the relationship starts looking like one of those beautiful dark oceans at night. Mesmerizing from the shore, dangerous once you swim too far out. This looks soft and glamorous on the surface, but underneath the chart, it's all Pluto currents, power currents, and Neptune fog. The deeper you go into the synastry, the more intense it gets. Her Pluto sextiles his Mars. That's the spark plug in this synastry. That adds another layer of magnetic chemistry to the relationship. There is seduction here, but not in an aggressive way. His Mars in Libra pulls through charm and attention while her Pluto intensifies this energy. She makes him feel more sexually alive. Pluto contacts to Mars wake up that sexual intensity that starts turning attraction into desire and passion. But underneath all of this Plutonic intensity and magnetic attraction, the fog machine is now turned on. His Neptune sextiles her moon in Aries. This is the kind of energy that can make her feel dreamlike very quickly. He softens her emotional fire without putting it out. And she may start seeing him less like a man and more like a fantasy that she wandered into by accident. He pulls her into a space where vulnerability feels romantic and dreamy. But Neptune is the fog machine in astrology. The connection can become so emotionally seductive that reality starts dissolving around the edges. What feels dreamy and soulmate like 1 minute can slowly turn into idealization, projection, or longing for something that never fully existed the way they imagined it to be. Now, his Neptune sextiles her Venus. That brings softness and fantasy into the relationship. They drift into each other like a tide, pulling two people out to sea. There is glamour here, seduction. It's romantic. But this is where Neptune can become foggy. The water stays calm and beautiful right up until she realizes that she can no longer see the shoreline. But then the sky changes. Her Neptune opposing his Venus is where the mirror starts really fogging over. The love can become so idealized that neither one of them is fully seeing the other clearly anymore. Feelings blur together with fantasy and projection. One of them reaches for reassurance while the other slips further into the mist. Neptune oppositions can feel beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time because the romance is there, but it's deceiving. At first, this can feel intoxicating, romantic. They may see each other through a veil of fantasy instead of reality, projecting impossible ideals onto one another. Neptunian relationships are like taking a strong drug that puts you in a romantic, dreamlike state. Once you wake up from a Neptune fog, you can't understand while you were hoodwinked into taking a magical trip on a carpet ride that led to nowhere. And the descent into reality is brutal. Now, her Mercury squares his Neptune 0 degrees. You can't get tighter than that. This is where communication becomes blurred. There won't be a lot of clarity. Lies could be told, and truth will become distorted. This is where the fog machine fully turns on inside the communication between them. Words become slippery here, and the meaning shifts. One person says one thing, while the other hears something completely different. They may not always be talking to each other as much as they are talking to the version of each other that they want to believe is standing in front of them. Fortunately, they have a Mercury trine Mercury aspect, which helps, but Neptune does not stay in the background for very long. Neptune always makes an appearance, especially with this square at 0 degrees, because the energy is strongest there at that orb. And then the energy between them starts becoming heavier and more karmic because his Saturn conjuncts her Aries rising. Aries wants movement and the ability to move through life without somebody standing there like a parent with a clipboard judging every decision that she makes. So this could start feeling like a cold winter coat thrown over a flame. The fire is still there, but now it has weight on top of it. His Saturn slows the rhythm down and watches and measures her. So while this can absolutely make the relationship feel serious, fated, and binding, it can also start feeling like he is pressing the brakes while she keeps trying to reach for the gas pedal. And the energy in his love nature gets rattled because her Uranus opposes his Venus. This keeps the relationship electrically unstable from the very beginning. This is attraction showing up like a lightning strike in the middle of the night. One minute, the chemistry feels intoxicating and impossible to resist. And then the next minute, she's already halfway out the door chasing freedom again. Her Uranus pulls him into a whiplash. There's adrenaline here, excitement, and abrupt shifts that happen out of nowhere. And for Venus, which is him, that can feel both thrilling and exciting at the same time, like standing too close to live wires, knowing that you could get electrocuted and should probably step back. But part of him likes this electricity and chemistry too much to leave. So this covers all of the major Pluto and Neptunian energy acting as the backbone of their chart. Now I'm going to be diving into the asteroids, which adds the final layer of symbolism and missing pieces that really completes the story between them. His Chiron, Ambrosia, Dejanira, Angel, Reiki, and Humpty Dumpty conjuncts her North Node and Sirius asteroids. I'm going to try and break this down as simple as I can. It's as if the relationship arrives carrying both the poison and the antidote in the same bottle. It's like an entire story and theme of their relationship showing up at the same time. Now, Chiron brings the wound. Reiki brings the possibility of healing it. Angel stands nearby like a spiritual protector and guide. But Dejanira is there to remind her that not every lesson arrives gently. Some lessons arrive through becoming a victim, through fracture, but then comes eventual healing. Ambrosia brings something sweet, divine, and almost heaven-sent. Ambrosia is the nectar of the gods. And Humpty Dumpty brings the fracture. Every fairy tale has a moment when the glass slips from somebody's hands and shatters across the floor. So the symbolism here becomes incredibly layered because the chart is not showing a simple blessing or a simple wound. It's showing both. And because all of this is on her North Node, the relationship starts feeling important almost immediately. Like there is something here she is supposed to experience, learn from, or walk through, whether the lesson is comfortable or not. Because Ceres gets pulled into the theme too. Ceres wants to nurture, protect, feed, and care for what she loves. So now this cluster of asteroids starts feeling even more personal. The connection creates moments where she feels cared for, but sitting right beside that nurturing energy is pain, victimhood, fracture, and healing at the same time. This makes sense because her Reiki is conjuncting his Venus. So no matter how this relationship unfolds, healing becomes part of the storyline because this cluster carries both the injury and the cure, the fracture and the possibility of repair. The relationship is still unfolding, but this is what I see in the future for them. And this is where the asteroid Agapanor starts getting interesting. In mythology, Agapanor was the guide through the journey after the Trojan War. So when his Agapanor conjuncts her ascendant, I have to wonder if part of his role in her life is to lead her into a new version or chapter of herself. Not necessarily to stay forever, but to open a door. Agapanor is guide energy. The person who takes somebody from one shore to another with love and friendship woven in. Not necessarily the person who stays once the journey is over, though. Then her Agapanor is conjuncting his Neptune. And suddenly, Neptune starts wrapping fog around the story again. Sometimes the person carrying the lantern through the forest gets mistaken for the destination itself. So for her, Neptune makes it difficult to tell the difference between the guide and the destination. Now, her Boda, the Spanish word for wedding, conjuncts his North Node at 2 degrees. So marriage symbolism is woven into the storyline. But the chart seems determined to make them travel through a lot of fog before anybody reaches the altar. Life is funny like this because sometimes the person who changes your life is also the person that you marry, while other times the guide who leads you to the next chapter was never meant to stay for the entire story. Or maybe he will lead her into the next chapter of her life by marrying her. That's a possibility as well. And then Hypnos shows up. His Hypnos conjuncts her IC. At this point, the chart starts repeating itself because Hypnos was the god of sleep, dreams, and altered states. And since Hypnos is on her IC, he reaches one of the deepest, most private parts of her chart. This validates all of the Neptune symbolism that I've been talking about. The fog, fantasy, and dreamy romantic illusions. Now, his Fantasia conjuncts her moon at 0 degrees. Now, the chart is practically standing on a rooftop waving a giant flag that says fantasy, dreams, idealization, imagination. These asteroids have joined the planetary chorus that's already singing the same song. His Sappho conjuncts her south node, while her Eros conjuncts his south node. This is like opening a book and realizing that somebody else already has folded the corners down years ago. Sappho is poetic, passionate, and sensual. Then her Eros is on his south node, and now desire is standing in the same room. It's as if the attraction arrives already carrying a history neither one of them can fully explain. The attraction here feels like a continuation from a past life. Her Lilith conjuncts his Sun and Mercury, and for a Cancer man, that can feel incredibly exposing. His Sun is his identity. His Mercury is his voice and his thoughts. Then her Lilith arrives, and suddenly the curtains are gone. She becomes the woman who keeps wandering back into his thoughts long after the conversation is over. The temptation and the sexual attraction here is strong. Now, his Pholus conjuncts her vertex, Pallas, Chiron, Vesta, and Grieve. Pholus has a way of exploding the energies of whatever it touches. So when his Pholus lands on this entire cluster of asteroids on her vertex, he walks in and suddenly she will be dealing with pain, devotion, grief, fate, and healing all at the same time. And with Pallas sitting there, she is studying it like a chessboard, trying to figure out whether this is fate, an eventual heartbreak, or a devotion that is meant to be. The vertex is a fated point. So all of these asteroids that he's bringing in are going to affect her really strongly. She's got a loaded sky map here with these asteroids. And he triggers the part of her that starts studying the entire relationship like a battle plan because of Pallas. Now, his Jupiter conjuncts her finale. That immediately caught my attention because Jupiter expands whatever it touches. And when it lands on finale, the ending becomes impossible to ignore. Finale is the final chapter of the story, the last page, the moment where everything that came before suddenly makes sense. So I have to wonder if his role in her life is connected to bringing a major life chapter to completion. Jupiter is often associated with new horizons, but sometimes the greatest gift Jupiter brings is helping someone finally arrive at the end of a road they were never meant to walk forever alone. So that's all I have today, and I wish them the best, and I will be back soon with more Synastry charts.